Hello friends, I'm Long Pamay. Welcome to the fourth and the final lesson for this series. I'll cover many more important topics today, and by the end of the lesson I'll introduce you to resources that will help you in your automation and projects. As mentioned in the first lesson, you'll have to complete all the assignments and projects to be able to get a certificate from VBA A to Z. In this lesson, you'll learn how to use array variables, debugging and error handling, how to speed up your code, learn how to use inbuilt functions and formulas in your program, and we'll also take a look at how to work with pivot tables, Excel tables, filtering data sets, hotkeys, and many more. As usual, let's explore these topics using real-life examples. Okay, let's say that you get this transactional data on a daily basis, and your work is to compile this data by mapping to get additional attributes of the data and do the reporting, maybe using a pivot table or sort of Excel table, and then you have to slice and dice the data of that sort. So let's take this example, and let's say that we have to import this data, which is for example, like the file name has been set up in that convention that T represents a transaction, and then the date in the format of DD and then YYYY, right? So, and then this is basic data set, which is the date, the same data that the file has, and then the amount. Okay, so let's go back to our first lesson. I'm gonna just take this UI that we created, and I'm gonna paste it here in the fourth lesson. I'll first paste the width, and I'll paste the data, and then the format. I'll just remove this. Maybe for this example we'll just rename this as admin control, something of that sort. It's up to you. And then we'll just say v1.0, and so this one can be the folder from where the data will be imported. So this will be the folder name. For now, I'll just paste the path of daily jobs like this, and this can be longer like this. Okay, and next will be the file name. So using this real example, I'll show you all about error handling, how to control things that you put in, for example. So the file name can be automatically calculated. Let's just take a sample of this file. Let's say the user enters not the file name, let's say they input the date. Let's say this is 8/31/2020. So based on that, we can calculate the file. So first, let me just do this. We use a text to get this date formatted in the way we want. So T and then DD Y. So this will give us this. Now we'll concatenate this with T space and then this function. Okay, so this is basically our file name, whatever the date it inputs, and then further we'll concatenate this with the file extension xlsx like this. So once we have this, you can cut this and concatenate with the file path. So normally this is how you can construct this path. Just give me 1 second. Equal to and this. Okay, so this will be our file name. So now I think we can just rename this to file name. This will be based on the date that the user will select. So I think it's makes sense if we just move this down somewhere here, something like this. And for now, we'll just get rid of additional things. Just get rid of that. So I'm not gonna spend time to do this part, but this is basic UI you can build to instead of just letting the user go to the view macros and random macros. I think you should build at least some basic UI to guide them. Okay, So let's do this. The brighter one will be at the bottom here and there. So this will give like text look and feel, but okay. Alright, so let's say that last execution status can be here. It's okay to have that. And maybe we'll just grab that button as well. You'll save us some time. And let's say this is import data. That will be our first step. Let's say this is home or something like this. Put in a first step. So whenever you have to work within Excel, if anything can be recorded, quickly record it now that you're already familiar with how to deal with objects, the properties, members, methods associated with that. So don't waste your time typing out all the codes. If possible, you save out the codes that I'm also about to talk in a bit. Just try to save the code that you might use frequently so that you don't have to type those things again, okay? Alright, so now let's go ahead and record a small macro, and then I'll tell you how to edit that. So let's close project 1 for now. And so my UI, this editor will look a bit different. Again, like in the channel, there are so many resources how you can customize this. Basically, I've dragged all this top portion here in the corner, and then I've put in the Explorer this side, okay? So, yep, nothing have changed, just the look and feel. So if you want a customization like this, there's already a video. I'll like walk you through additional resource at a later stage. So now I'm gonna have this here and this one here, so we can see side by side what is going on with the code. Okay, record, and then now we want to get this file, for example. So shift right click, okay, shift right click, copy as path. Okay, so the recording has started. Everything you do, if you're new, everything you do is going to be recorded here now. So Control O, or you can go here and then open and then browse, put in the file name, okay, or you browse to this path and then select this file and then open it as read only. It is advisable so that you do not, like by some error or something, you change the actual file. It's a good practice to do that. Okay, so now you'll see the recording here. Okay, so this is the recording that is going on now. So as you can see, this part is basically navigating it to the directory and then opening up this. Okay, so far it has just opened the file, and like we can make sure that it's activating. Always remember that you have to be very specific in your code. Okay, and then yes, of course you can dynamically change all this as well, but you have to be specific. Okay, open the book, and then from which book you have to activate which sheet and all this, so on and so forth. So let's keep it simple for now. I'm just gonna select everything. So as you can see here, it's has selected the range. It's just resize the application width. Okay, so now I'm just gonna copy this, selection copy, and coming to lesson 4 workbook. So far there is no data tab, so I'll just name a data tab, and then I'm gonna paste special, and then I'm gonna paste it as values and number formats. Okay, and then now I'm just gonna press escape from my keyboard, and then you'll see that application cut copy mode false. This is basically clearing the clipboard. And now I'm gonna go back to this file. You'll see here's read only, so that confirms that it opened read only, and I've closed the file, and then now I can stop the recording. Okay, so pretty much that is how the data import is going to be done without any filtering of any sort. Okay, so we'll go further, more advanced from here. Okay, so this will be our base. Now from here, let's say that instead of writing everything, just do a recording like this, and then you quickly clean them up. Okay, so from here, what you have to do is this part opens the workbook. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of this. We do not need this. I'm gonna change the name of the code to import data, and then I'll say we'll declare WBS workbook, and we'll say anytime you're using Excel objects or like objects, you have to set. Okay, you cannot just say WB is equal to, you already know this, but just a reminder, you cannot, if you do this, it'll give you an error, so you have to use the word set. Okay, you have to set the object variable. So once you do this, it will give you an error, because once you're using this method, you have to open the bracket like this and close it like this. So now we have set up the workbook variable, and then we have assign it to like the workbook that we want to open. If you don't use this method also, it's okay, but if you use this, you can like further, you can say this workbook.activate, just to make sure that during the process there was no certain other interruptions. And then this one is going to come from obviously the file, which is here, okay, based on the date. So let's say that this range name is file name. Okay, so I put a name there, and let's declare dim file name as string. Okay, now some of you ask me when I put this $sign here like this, it's the same thing. Okay, if I put file name as $, right, prefix it with suffix it with $sign, that means this basically just represents a string. Okay, it's the same as writing it in this fashion. So again, you have to spend time yourself, you have to play around so that you can be more familiar. If you just practice the one that I'm showing you, then you cannot do the real projects. Okay, it's going to be very difficult for you. It will take lots of time as well. So the more you spend time to play around, know things, then you can build a better, more efficient application as well. So anytime you're confused with something, you can shoot an email to me as well, or you can Google it, obviously, and then, or you can press F1, for example, by putting your like cursor on this data type. Once you press F1, it will navigate you to official site where there is a documentation, online documentation, which is updated all the time. Okay, so we are debating a bit, but these things are very important that I have to tell you. So once you go here, keywords, so let's say string variable. So once you come here, I press hold on, data types, and then once you go here, this is the one that I was talking about in the beginning. Oops, sorry, we are going to check the string. Okay, so once I click on string, you'll see that it has explanation about like the limitations and how much string you can be stored, characters, and so on. And here you'll see this as well. It is mentioned here that it can be declared as a $sign as well. Okay, so similarly for long, it is %, and then for double, it is hashtag, for example. So you can like take time to review all these things. Okay, let's kind of close this. So now we have set up the workbook. If you want more attributes, to pass more parameters, once you put a comma, you'll see where you are. Now this is read only is true, and then if you want, you can here one important thing is update links. So for example, you don't want to update the links. Let's say the workbook is update links, so you can just write update links, and then you can see false or true. Okay, something like that. Otherwise it's gonna prompt you and all. So there are more tips around that. I'll come back to that. So we've opened the workbook, we've activated the workbook just to make sure, and here we're gonna select the data. Selecting and activating, if you select, it will like navigate to that particular tab from this file. But if you just activate, it is not gonna navigate there as such if it is not already there, but your code will be able to refer to it without even like going and selecting that. Okay, so you can also activate this or select whatever is depending on the scenario. it's important that you need to be specific, because if there are two files and let's say that someone has messed around with the file and they put another tab here, something like review, or something like notes or something, so your code is going to try to pick the data from the first tab. Once it opens up, it's going to cause issues, so you need to watch out for that. Okay, so here we are activating that particular sheet, and then I'm just gonna get rid of all this selection which is not required. From this tab we want to copy this data, right? From A1, I think we do not want to copy the header, so I'm just gonna get this away and then do this, and we'll change this, okay, in just a bit. Now after this we're gonna come back to this workbook. Again, remember, this workbook is the book that where you're writing your code. Okay, this workbook.activate. So we're coming back to workbook. So open the workbook, go into this workbook, activate the sheet, copy the data, come back to this workbook, and then here we want to select this tab, and then we want to paste the data. Obviously for now we'll just put a range A1, but we do not want to paste in A1 always. We want to find the last row with the data, and then we have to paste it there. Okay, and then paste it here, clear the clipboard, and that's it. Okay, so here instead of active workbook we'll say WB, which is this, you know, external workbook. We can, I think, just rename this as external book. The variable will make more easier to relate to. Okay, so there's one tip there. So now I just changed the variable. The thing that I always try to make sure is to compile my code. So Alt D, okay, and then I hit enter. So it's going to basically run this. So it will check if there's any issues within the code, and then it will tell you, okay, variable not found. That was just because we have renamed this. So now I'm just going to rename this as well, compile it again. So this is just a practice you'll always observe in my other tutorials as well, that I normally just do this. Okay, so that's one way to compile it. So far there is no error handling here. Okay, we are just saying that open this file, go to this workbook, copy the data, bring in the data, paste the data, close the workbook, and then we'll say set this, we'll just clear the memory. Okay, so now file name, instead of hard coding this, we'll say that file name will come from home tab. Okay, and then it's gonna come from here, file name. So we can say sheets, and then sheets home, and then dot range dot value. Okay, so if we use the immediate window, again, you already know about this, Control G, you can validate the information like this, so that you know the syntax is working. So this is another way of debugging your code, or checking your code. Okay, so now instead of this full path, I'll just replace this with the file name. Okay, and then compile again. So you observe that once I compile this space was gone. Okay, or once you know, like, go to the next line, it goes away. So this is more better from the recording. See, you don't have to type everything, you can record it and you can easily change this. So let's try to run this once. Now we already have the file set up. We want to paste in A2. Okay, now it comes without the header. So let's try to run it. So F8 to go line by line. Okay, so now it has opened the workbook, and let's say that there is another sheet here, and then I say select instead of activate. It's gonna go there, yeah, and then it's gonna copy that range all the way from A2 to, you know, like 2000 something, and then it's gonna activate this workbook, is where the code is. Okay, and then activating this particular sheet. Okay, now let's say that you're here, and then you want to make sure that your code is pasting there. You can just drag this line up here, okay, and then rerun that part. Okay, like, and then now if I do this, it's gonna activate this, so that way I am sure that, okay, this line works. And then now it's gonna paste in A2. This works perfect, and then clear the clipboard, close the workbook. Now it asks me, do you want to save it? No, I do not want to save it, and then this. So here, if you don't want to get a prompt, you can just say false. Okay, so the next time you run it, it did not ask me. Okay, or if you want to quickly run again and stop here, you can either put a breakpoint by clicking here or F1. I can't use F9 right now because of the recording conflict keys. So you can press F9, it will put a breakpoint here, or you can go to debug and then F9, okay, toggle breakpoint. And then if you run this now, okay, so it stopped here. Or the other way to do that will be click again to remove it. If you want to run till here without putting a breakpoint, here's a shortcut for that as well. Control F8, okay, run to cursor. So wherever your cursor is in the line, not in a blank line, but in the actual code line. So if I hit Control and F8, okay, so it ran till here and then it stopped. So you can also quickly rerun and test your code in that fashion. Okay, so I'm gonna mix things up here. Okay, I'm not gonna like explain all about debugging or error handling in one shot. So this way, you know how to use this practically. Okay, so that's pretty much now that you know how to import the data. Again, we already wrote like for example how to set up the last row. For example, from after activating this sheet, we can say dim. Now I'm gonna use this sign. Okay, this represents long. Some people will use that, so I'm just gonna use that so that you can know it. Now this is external workbook, and then I'll just say this workbook and then LR. LR represents the last row. Okay, I do in this fashion. So you can say like this also. Okay, so in external workbook, after activating this sheet, we'll find the last row. So for this, since we are already in this tab, you do not have to specify the sheet name again because it's already there. Okay, so I'll say cells, and then here you can say rows.count. That will be entire row, and then let's say the column to be used to determine the last row, maybe first column, and then from here we'll do Excel up dot row. Okay, just give me 1 second. Dot end, like this. From end it will do Excel up. So if I, for example, just to test it out, I'll just do question mark and run this line. So it's gonna bring in here. So whatever the active sheet is gonna find the last row. Now if I run this again, we'll expect it to be this particular row number. Okay, so 2504. So now instead of this 2501, I'll just get rid of this, and then I'm gonna concatenate to construct the dynamic range. Okay, so whatever is the last row is gonna copy the data from there now, and then coming here, I'll just copy the same line after coming to this workbook. Now to remove the, I think because both the source and the here at this workbook, the file of the sheet name is data, I'll just change this to, let's say, master data, something like that. And then here as well, I'm going to say master data, and this workbook LR is gonna be again based on A column. And now we don't want to paste in the last row, but we want to paste in the next row. So either you can just put +1, or you can just say dot offset. You can offset away from this particular range 1 row down, same column, dot row. Okay, that way also it's okay. Now instead of A2, we want to paste in the last row so that the prior data is not, wiped out. So that will be idle way to write importing the data code. Now what we can do, we can hook this code by right click, assign macro. You can either select or just paste the name of the code, click on OK. Okay, so once this is done, we can use the message box. This will be a good time to just use the message box. So Control J, message box, and then data imported, something like that. And here, once you put a comma, you'll see various type of message box. You can just say information, VBA information, or if there's error, maybe you can use critical, something like that. Information, and then this will be maybe name of your app. So let's declare a constant variable, app as string equal to listen for app, something like that. Okay, so if I run this now, okay, it imported the data, everything's perfectly fine. Now the issues will start coming up when someone changes the name of the tab, or the order, like the file name is not there. All these issues will start coming up. That's where you like specify error handling. So most common way of error handling is you assign a label. For example, where do you want the error to happen? When the error happens, what do you want to do with it? So the most common way is you set a point to like this, a label. For example, let's say import data error handler, something like that. Oops. And then you put a semicolon like this, okay? And then if error happens, let's say we want to point to this location and we don't want to run till there. If everything runs okay here, we just want to stop here. Exit sub means like it will just exit this process, okay? So let's say that on error go to this location. If any error happens, just exit here, okay? So let's say message box, we can say if error happen, we will just maybe trap here error.description, and then it will basically just notify the user this is the error description, and then error code, maybe error number, and comma, this is the time maybe we can use critical, that was an error, so, and then my app, just the name of the app. And maybe you can prefix a custom message as well, unexpected error, something like that, okay? So now in order to just bring this error, I'm gonna just put a date, maybe like 8/1/2020. Probably this file is not there. Okay, so this file is not there, so now it should give an error. So it says unexpected error, sorry, we cannot find this file. Is it possible it's moved, rename, or this the error number? So that's how like as soon as the error happens, we're saying if any error happens after this line, directly navigate to this area, okay? So just gonna press F8. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna do it again. Now just observe, this is the place where the error is gonna happen. Once I press F8 again, now you see this arrow, it's gonna go down here, okay? So it went down here, and then it gave us this feedback. So this is pretty useful as well, even if you do not have to put all the handling, additional handling, this way also will work. So in case you do not specify this, okay, there is no error handling, and you run this, F8 again, so it's gonna return this runtime error. This is like user will have option to click on debug, and then it'll point where the error happened, or you can click on N and you will not know further information about it. The other way to do this, I mean additional information you can put, which is useful, are like I normally say dot and then ss, just to represent the source script, and then I put it like this, so to know that this is the name of the code which has caused an error. Yeah, so let's say I go back here and I run this, so it says source is this code, so that way developers have more like whoever developed this code will have more information about where the error was generated. Okay, now coming back here, again, if I remove this, you can also like force the code to run even if it errors. Okay, so for example, just to demonstrate that, let me just go down here and create a new code. Let's say this is the code, and so at first it is on error go to 0. That is the default. Okay, so let's say that message box, or let's say debug.print. Debug.print is just to print out here the results in the immediate window. Let's say that debug.print 1 divided by 1. Okay, so if I do this, it just return 1 here. So let's say I do this 0, it will give division by 0 error code 11, right? So let's say that I say on error go resume next. On error resume next, so it will not throw an error, it just resume next. Okay, and after running this particular line, let's say you want to, for this line, let's say you do not want to show the error, but for the following lines you want to show an error, so you can just say you can do this manner, on error go to 0. Okay, so you can also do that. So if there's any error, it will not give that error, and it will continue to process that. There will be scenarios when that you cannot find the results, but if the result is not there, let's say that is defaulted to 0, so you can also use this sort of line. Okay, I think we'll come to that scenario. I'll explain that more. So now if you already know that there are certain scenarios where the issues can happen, so you can check that upfront as well. Okay, now there are so many functions that I have, but for now, just to keep it light, I'm just gonna show you some functions for this lesson. Customize functions. So this is .bas, that is a macro module. Okay, basically. So I'm gonna drag this into my project anywhere, and then this is gonna be the code. So this will basically check if the file exists using the like file system object, and it's gonna check if the folder exists or the worksheet exists. Okay, so what we can do here is let's use this code and put it in our code. Okay, so here on error it will go to this. After we get the file name, we can check if the file exists. Okay, so file exists. In this function, just imagine, I think you're already familiar by now what is the function. Function is like, the most familiar function is like a sum or a VLOOKUP where you put in parameters. So here, this is the name of the function, and here you have to supply the file name, which is this. So if file name equal to false, if this is false, then meaning the file does not exist. Okay, if this does not exist, we can just supply, we can just say this file and does not exist, and then here you straight away exit sub. Okay, so you can take care of it in this fashion also. So let's say I come back here now and run this, it will give like this file does not exist, and then you can put more information. Please ensure the date is supplied correctly, something like that. And then here is VB critical, and then again my app. So instead of just showing, if you do not use this, you'll see that Microsoft Excel, right? So instead of that, you can always use a constant variable to supply the name of your app, which is giving the message. Yeah. Okay, so that way you can exit sub from here. If you're writing a function, you can do exit function. Okay, so here if the file exists, so let's say 831, and you run this, it's gonna import the data perfectly. Yeah, so this time it brought to a new range. Okay, now coming back here, if this is blank, it's also a good to check. You can also directly check let's say this is called period, v period, something like that. Period itself could be so you can assign a variable to directly handle this data as well, or you can directly say if this value is equal to blank, if the cell is blank, then can do in this fashion also. So in this one we can say date cannot be blank, something like that. Okay, so if I run this, date cannot be blank, I supply the date 8:31, it imports the data. Now if you have lots of validation like this, it is best that you know, like I think we did it in our prior lesson, that we bifurcated all the validation into one block, like a new function itself. Or you can loop through, you can even have like some sort of system related sheet where you can say, okay, this is the name range, let's say v period, and then if it is mandatory, and then sorry, mandatory, or maybe if this is yes or no field, and if you mark yes, then it's mandatory, if it is not, it's no. So your code can loop through this range, and then it will check if this range is blank or not. So that way also you can do a validation. Okay, so it's up to you. Once you develop more solutions, I just want you to know these are the things that you can consider. Okay, so obviously I know like many of you have like, okay, can you not do in this fashion, or I have done in this fashion because I thought that was much it makes more sense. So obviously yes, of course you can do that, you have to do that. I'm explaining things in a way that it will make more sense, like easy to catch, I would say, in a more layman term, and not the some of the approach that I'm showing you may not be the best way to do it. Okay, all right, so now you know how to handle if the cell is blank, how to put in that pre-validation before the code gets executed. And then down here, for example, this particular workbook has a sheet called data. Just imagine that is like missing, then it will also give you an error, right? So let's say that going back to daily jobs, this file, let's say that the users who are supplying you the data start changing the name to data X instead of data, right? So the next time you run this, it's going to give you unexpected error, subscript out of range, import data. So we know, okay, subscript is out of range, this could be from any file, and then import data. So it will kind of guide you, like where the error could have happened. So you go into this file and then you check, or the users will go and check if the sheet name have changed. So here it is, the name have changed. So you can also put a validation like this on runtime. For example, worksheet exists. You just need to pass the name of the worksheet and the workbook as well if needed. Okay, so very quickly on this, name of the sheet that was passed. Okay, so basically this is a worksheet object, and then it's setting up that if it errors, then it's gonna return as false. Okay, so if the workbook is not assigned, it automatically presume it's gonna check the sheet exists in this workbook. So I can copy this, and let's see, I come back here after activating that workbook. Let's say that before we select, we can check if works exists, and the one we want to check is this. Okay, if this sheet exists, you see this is supposed to be passed as string. Okay, and then the workbook is going to be, we want to check if this sheet exists here. Okay, in that external workbook. If this is false, then here is a good time to provide a feedback that normally I just exit to the bottom, and then based on the error message I also try to provide a message here, or the best way is to write a log. Okay, so we'll come to that as well. So if this exists false, then we can say data sheet not found in destination workbook. Yeah, and then here we are gonna go exit to this. Let's say there is another label, and this one is like sorry, let's put it here, and then on our exit sub here. Okay, this one is for error, this one is for, let's say, pre-exit or something like that. So let's say that if this happens, we want to exit to that go to, okay, go to this location. So if it exits sub, it's not gonna close the workbook. That's why I'm trying to do this. Okay, and then I'm gonna copy and paste it here, this part, and I'll just say import data import not completed. Okay, unsuccessful, something like that. Now if I run this again, so data sheet was not found in destination workbook, and click on OK, data import not completed. Okay, so this is another way to handle it. Let's say that you want to run the code irrespective. Again, you can do like on error go resume next, on error go to 0. So this will execute the line irrespective and continue to go. In this kind of scenario, let's say that after this code, you want to further, let's say that in the beginning it's like this, and then you want to run this line. This could be, let's say, sheets. Let's say that we have a sheet called system. We want to delete this every time this code runs. Let's say you're adding a new workbook, and then like sheet 1, 2, 3 is getting added, and you want to delete 2 sheets because they are useless. So you can say you can use an example like this. Let's say if the sheets exist, you delete it. Otherwise, you don't care. Let's just continue, right? So let's say you have other codes here, other code lines here, okay? And then you're running it, and this particular line, you're telling the code to delete the sheets, which is sometime may exist, sometime may not exist. So if it exists, then it will delete it. If it doesn't, then it will not give you an error and proceed. Okay, so in that scenario, let's say that after executing this line, you want this to be reactivated, this line, then you have to put this code again here. Okay, because on error go to 0 will ignore the first line that you put in there, so you have to re-enter that code here. Okay, that error is because error x, let's say it's here, something like that. Okay, so this is how you are gonna be able to leverage this error handling as well. So it's asking, do you want to delete the sheet? I'm just gonna cancel. So let's say while you're running your code, if you want this displays to be off, you can use this application dot display alerts is equal to false. So and then don't forget turn back on is the true. Okay, so no, it's not gonna ask, do you want to delete this particular sheet? It will just delete that sheet. Yeah, you saw that. Okay, so this is another way to tackle it. Now you've learned how to import the data, put some pre-validation, import the data, check if the sheet exists. So similarly, there are so many functions to check if the item exists in the array, or let's say that there's a shape in the PowerPoint, in the workbook, there's a formula or not. So many functions to check, so many things. Okay, so once you go further in this process of like developing your projects and automation, you'll come across so many solutions. If you are lost, feel free to reach out to me. I'll try to respond to you as soon as possible. Okay, all right, now so let's say that we've imported the data here, and every time you import the data, let's say that you want to update the formulas. Let's say that there is I'm just gonna get rid of this for now. Let's say that in this data you want to import I mean, you want to update, let's say, attributes of this particular client ID, because this is now by client ID. Maybe you want to do data reporting based on the state, based on the, their names, who are the top clients, or due to so many other attributes. Okay, so it will become very useful. So let's say that we want to bring in the state first. So I'll say st here, and then VLOOKUP this client. Let's do it from this table. And then this is what normally I would count A. This will just give the count of that index. And then, okay, so let's say that you want the formula to do this every time the data is imported, and then you want to make it to values. Okay, so even this, you can easily, record this as well. First, I'll, show you this simple example. So I'm just gonna record this, and then I'm just gonna select this cell F2 and then enter. That's gonna record the formulas, right? So if you go here, you'll see the syntax that D2 dot formula R1C1, notation, and then this is a formula. So this also should work. For example, let's say that so D2 is to D16. Okay, so if I just get rid of this and run this code now, D2 is to D2 is to D16 dot formula is this, yeah. So it works this way as well. Now you can also formula 1 2. Now you can also say with this range dot, instead of R1C1 you can also dot formula is equal to, and then just give me 1 second. Here you can specify this formula. Okay, whatever the first cell formula is gonna be, you can paste it here like this. Okay, so whatever your formula is, you can just paste that entire string here. Don't forget this equals to. Okay, so there will be equal to, and then within the code there will be equal to your full formula. Okay, so I'm gonna run this code once more, clear it off, run. Okay, so this way also should work. And then here obviously you can change this to LR, like what will be your dynamic last row. I think that goes without saying. Dim LR as long, and then run your code. Okay, and then you can, if you want to update certain things to be dynamic based on, if your formula is not based of this and something else, you can also it was A2 A2 earlier, right? So A2, so instead of A2 you can remove this, select this, double quote, and here you can put in your whatever variable it is. Okay, variable value, that can also be done. Similarly, this number can be changed, it can be dynamic. This doesn't have to be count A, actually that was just a demonstration. So coming back here, the state is in 7th column. Yeah, so you can just place 7 here as well. Okay, now let's say that within your code, many a times you'll come very handy that you can use inbuilt functions. Okay, so inbuilt function, I'll just put function fc. Okay, so let's say that you want to use inbuilt function, and you want to check which row this client is located, for example. Let's say, so we can use match for that, or you can use find also, but for now let's say that we'll use debug.print just to test it out. Or let's say that, just to make it more practical, client row as long, that will be return a number, and then client row is equal to, and then let's say that Control J application dot worksheet function, and then this is all the lists that are available. Okay, you can also just press, like go to object browser here, F2, and then check all this. So let's say we want to use match function, and then in match first will be the value you want to look, which is, let's say, this client, comma, and you want to specify the range here. Okay, so let's say that we want to look from A1 till 501, range A1 till A501, and then you want it to be exact match. Okay, so if this particular value exists, it's gonna be okay, otherwise it's gonna give an error. So that's where the error handling comes into the picture again. So if I run this now, F5, 13. So it says this is located in 13. Okay, so 578. So that was 578. Now let's say that we want to look at Roy 20 CLT this 20. Yeah. So based on this, you can also do certain calculation. Maybe you can find the row. Based on the row, you can pull like cells. 4 will give us this data cells. This row, like this G column will give us this data, right? So if I demonstrate that, cells, and then this row, and then I can also specify G like this, and then dot value. Yeah, so it returned AC, which is this. Yeah, so again, all this will become handy when you start working on bigger projects. What will be the best way to accomplish things, easiest way to accomplish things, what will be the most efficient and most dependable, reliable ones that you can create. Okay, so similarly, yeah, here is example of match. Always, you can also specify the name of the sheets. Always be specific, so it does not cause issues if the cursor is somewhere here and you run the code now. Also, it should still work. Okay, so hold on, subscript out of range. Okay, so yeah, sorry, I thought what happened. Okay, so it's good to be specific like this, so irrespective of where you are, which sheet you are, it will just return you that data. Okay, match this from this table, you want this. Okay, I'm printing the current sheet, that's why it's not returning. Okay, so you can use this as well, worksheet function. Here you can find, you can use anything like VLOOKUP or index or transpose. Okay, all this. So that will be more on the formula side. Let's say that after you import the data, you want to put a formula, but then you want to get rid of the formulas and just store it as values. You can directly say here dot value is equal to dot value. Okay, so if I run this again now, here you see the formulas. Now these are just stored as values. So after that, and if you're working on a huge files, probably you'll turn off the calculation. So the good way will be just to make sure this is calculated. Okay, so it will calculate that range and then it will write the values to snapshot. Okay, all right, now let's include this part. Actually, let's include this in our master import. Just gonna get rid of this. So after we import the data and paste it here and clear the clipboard, we want to update the state. Okay, so for that we can say VLOOKUP this, and the range still remains the same, but this LR is gonna be will evaluate this like this workbook last row, because the data is already being pasted here. Yeah, hold on, this row, it finds the last row plus 1. I think this should be where it should be pasted, and then this should be here. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, destination workbook, the tab was not found. So let me just rename it back to data, and we'll try to run for multiple files now. I'm going to clear this off, and then we can use this data set to work on pivot tables, other tables. Okay. Okay. Hold on. I think I messed up something. So copy the data, come in here, find the last row. Offset 1. Okay, this does not need to offset further. That's my bad. And here, offset 1 dot row. This one we do not want to offset here. That was what I was trying to change, because we want to update the formula still the last row only, not the further row. Yeah. Okay. Running again. So updated the formula, and then it's converted the values. Now let's try to bring in data from 9/1 2020 imported. So you can see 9/1 data is here now. Now let's put 9/2. Data is imported, and then 9/3, and then 9/4 and 9/5. Okay, 9/4 and 9/5. Okay, so now we've imported all this data that is there in daily jobs folder. Now let's say that you have to create a pivot table. From my experience, you can directly create pivot tables also on runtime, but if you want certain things to be set up again and again, I think it's better to have a template of that sort, like a placeholder that you can reuse it all the time. Otherwise, you can also just record, select the range, insert a pivot table, maybe in a new workbook here. And if you just go here and see the syntax, you'll see that this part like just created a pivot table, and this part is just taking care of like where data should be and all. So if I bring this here, or let's say I just bring in the state, which is lesser data now, and the amount and the date here like this. So now your data is summarized pretty fast, and then if you want, you can drill down further to the specific dates. Okay, so now we have this data, and using a pivot table is awesome because you can work with big data. Again, if normal pivot table does not work, you still have Power Pivot as well. And so yeah, it's pretty useful when you have to aggregate the data, summarize the data really quickly without putting too much effort. So yeah, you can definitely record your pivot table creation part as well, like this. This part is basically which has created a pivot table, and this way you have drag and drop all the fields, so it will still work. Okay. Now let's say that you have to update the pivot range. So again, you can record this one also, so I don't want to waste too much time on this sort of things. So if you go to data change, and then here you say that instead of 01, you just remove 1 and just picks 1500 rows. And if you go back and check the code, you'll see that this part basically is used to update the pivot source. So let's say that you want to dynamically take care of this, then you can just use the same code to find the last row. For example, something like this. Instead of active sheet, it's always good to specify where to work with. Now this is gonna be pivot, and from this particular, I'll just say this is LR, dim LR this. Now instead of this, so this is row 1 column 1, row this much, and then column 4, right? So instead of that, you can like replace this with LR like this. And this part is not necessary when you're working with the same table, so you can just get rid of this in this fashion. Okay, so if I run this code now, Okay, so it has lesser data. Now this should be of master data, so you see more data is coming. Yeah, and then you can verify this as well by going to source, and then it pick up all the data again. Okay, so that's how you can, this way you can update pivot source. So all these examples will help you to, like, you have to put all this together to make, like, your project work. Maybe you don't have to use pivot table in some of the cases, but the more like, the more exposed you are, like, the better it is to create a more powerful application. And now let's say that you have to select certain, like, labels here in your code. Let's say that you have to do a reporting for a specific state. You have to, like, select certain states. You can, like, again, this can be simply recorded. For a single selection, it can be recorded. Multiple cases, it becomes a bit difficult. So if it is single, you come back here, you see that with this is this, and then these are all false. Yeah, so you can either loop through and then specify your logic in this fashion by looping through, and then this part can be all, you can just loop and then take care of it. The other way, let's record this again. I'm just gonna clear this first, and then if you do label equal to, let's say, vi, oh sorry, hold on, vi. Okay, now if you look at the syntax, it will be different from the one that was generated earlier. So here it says this, to select, and then label plus first row true, and then this clear filter, and then it put this. Yeah, so if I, sorry, I have to first stop this code. Okay, so if I go here, now it's clear the filter, this line will apply a filter to this. Okay, so you can do that as well. Now coming closer to arrays, let's say that you have to apply a filter to multiple of them. This way it's not efficient. Sometimes it could be there and then you have to loop through, and then finding it's could be cumbersome. Okay, so what we can do now is I'll introduce you to arrays. So you've already learned about all these variables, different type of variables, be variables with different data type like long, byte, double, currency, string, and variant. If you don't specify what will be a variable type, for example, if you do not specify anything, that is called variant, as variant is same as not specifying it. Okay, so you've already learned all these variables, and this variable can hold only one value in the memory, right? Now if you want, say that you want to a variable which can hold multiple values in a multi-dimensional way as well, which is very powerful. So arrays are very powerful. Be it any programming you pick up, it will become very handy. And then once you learn arrays, and then you can also learn dictionary, and then you can learn collections, and all this will, like, help you to build more efficient, more powerful, robust application. Okay, so coming to arrays, this when you record something, I'm sure you have recognized array being recorded sometime. Let's say I select these 3 sheets. Okay, and I stop the recording. You'll see like sheets and then array, it selected this particular sheet. Okay, so let's say that you want to create your own array. Let's do one example. Just give me 1 second, let me think about it. Let's do a simpler example first. Let's say that you want to put a filter to this data set. Let's see how it looks like. So if I select only one, then the syntax that it generates is like filter field for AC this. Now if I come back here and I first clear the filter and going back here, by the way, this array is nothing to do with filter. Okay, you can use for filtering, but arrays can be used anywhere, okay, for so many purposes. We'll talk more about it. So if I come back here now, it says okay, the array is this. Yeah, so you can use array as well to like pass multiple filters. So let's say that taking this example, let's say that you have to filter your data set based on multiple parameters, right? Again, filtering it's not as powerful as the way you can do a SQL command, like as all those things, but like those things are additional resource I'm going to point to at a later stage. So now let's say that you want to, instead of this specific, you want it to be dynamic. Yeah. So the way to assign a variable, array variable, array, and then this is test1. Okay. So when you declare any variable, let's say that dim name as string, file name is what we used earlier. So let's say dim file name as string. But whenever you're declaring a array variable, you need to supply a bracket, open and close bracket like this. Okay, so let's say that state list or something like that. As you can either specify a data type, or you can just leave it as blank. That will become a variant. Okay, so let's leave it as variant for now. And then this one here, you can specify the size. For example, like a 1. The index starts from 0, so 0, 1. So there will be 2 attempts in this particular array. Or you can just leave it like this also. Okay. So let's say that we want to pass all this in that array. We can say like 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll say 3. Okay, total is 4. Yeah. Now I'll say this, and then it's a question mark. So like you can specify the index. The first array value in the array is gonna be this. Let me just do in this fashion quickly. Second value, third value, fourth value. Yeah. So index 0 is empty. Index 1, 2, 3. So now we have set up a variable which has 4 values in it. So 1, 2, 3, and 0, 1, 2, and 3. So total 4. Okay. Now if I have to use this in this example, so instead of this, you can just get rid of this, and you can specify your array value here like this. Yeah. Now if I run this code, and then now I'll just open up this view and then local window. Here you'll be able to see all your values as well. When you're debugging, like looking at your code, this will become useful. So we'll talk more. Now it just put a filter using this array list. So this is one dimension, just a simple. If you want to use, for example, if you want to assign a specific data type, like to multi-dimension and all this, we'll talk more about this now. So similarly, now we can also do this for pivot table. Now I'm gonna go and get this pivot code. I think doesn't matter any one. We can just pick this one. So sub filter pivot field array. Okay, this is another example of array and how to use that in the table. So dim, let's say pt is going to be our pivot table. Okay, and then next will be pivot item. So pi as pivot item, and then let's just reuse this as state list array. Okay, just for now like this. And then again, the way you set up this object variable, same with the way you've already learned. So this is gonna be always be specific, okay, with what you're dealing with. Okay, so we have set up the pivot table. Now let's just clear the memory at the bottom once this runs is over, and then from here we can loop through all the items in the pivot table. In this pivot table, we're going to loop through each of these items, and then if they do not exist in the list, then we will make it, like we will uncheck it. Okay, we will not select this. So we've seen like the way to select and unselect. Yeah, so pretty much, like visible is equal to true or is to false. Let me just bring this down for your reference. Okay, so we have this pivot item now. So for each pivot item in pt dot sorry, let me just copy this pivot table dot pivot fields dot pivot items. Okay, and then next pi. Yeah, now from here, I'm sorry, this is just for reference, and then from here we can say now we need to validate if this particular like caption or the text exists in the array. Okay, so for that we can say we can use isError, and then we first we'll try to match it. Okay, so when you're constructing like a function or a formula which will have multiple functions, start off with the inner ones. So for example, we have learned application worksheet function, application.worksheet functions, and then from here we can use match. So match we already tried earlier. So pi.caption. Okay, we want to check if this caption exists in this list. Okay, in this list, and then we want to do exact match. Okay, so this will return if it is there, then it's going to return like the index number of that sort. Okay, of that wherever this caption exists. And now from here we want to say if it does not error. Okay, if not is error, and then we will put this in our this. If it does not, then you'll do something else now. Okay, so if it exists, then this will be ticked, right? So pt.visible will be true, else will be false. So let's try this. I'm just gonna get rid of this part. So I just compile, keep compiling. So if anything changes here, then like this is enabled. So if I do enter, once it's compiled, then this is grayed out. That means there is no error. Yeah. Okay, so F8 again, old VS will bring the local window, and then you can see all the variables are stored here. And then I go in further, F8. Okay, this got an error. Just give me 1 second. Just don't need this part. No, this should suffice. So same method. Sometime you have to try it out. Okay, so this exists, which is caption is ns, and then go further. Okay, if it does not exist in this list, which was ns, it will just make it false. So go next. So here ql also does not exist, so false. And then next, so I'm just placing my cursor and pressing F8. SA exists, so this will be true, meaning we don't have to do anything actually. And then next is TA exists, and then next is WA does not exist. Okay, so F5 for the rest of them. Okay, so this is how you can use like to filter the pivot items. This way you can also leverage pivot to do like additional data analysis, and we can just use this as well just to clear the filter. Like this as well. Okay, so that will be for the pivot table. Now a few more examples on array. We are still on one dimension array, by the way. So very quickly, you may not always want to use like you're not gonna hard code it. You'll probably be like using the sheets. Okay, so I've just set up a quick like this sheet with the list of, let's say that we want to pull the list from here and put a filter. The list can actually be like this as well, for example, in this fashion, transpose. Now let's say that we have a list, okay, and that list we're gonna assign without any like this is just a variant, and here we'll say this is equal to, and we can say sheets this dot d2 is to f2, yeah, d2 is to f2, okay. This is gonna be 2, and here we can again directly filter it in this fashion. Now I'm gonna go to master and run this code. Okay, did not work. Just give me 1 second. This is wrong. This has to be settings. Okay, so if I go here, whatever was there in that list got filtered. Yeah. Now, in case your list is not in this way and it's downwards like this, you'll have to transpose it. Okay, so let's say this is B2 to B4, right? B2 to B4, and if I run this code now, it'll apply a filter, but you'll see only the first item got picked up. Now for that scenario, if that happens, you'll have to again use transpose dot worksheet function dot transpose and then do it here. Okay, now if I run this again now for the same, it's filtered. Okay, so you can use that to like filter out your data set in that fashion. Now let's do some more array example. Let's say this is array test tree. Okay, so without array also you should be able to get around, but if you know array, then it will be a big plus point. Some of the examples where I've used arrays, like I almost use array in many scenarios, like data comparison. You have to store data and do certain comparison with other data set, and then you split out like the data based on slicing the data. I've used arrays with dictionary to like find out what is the unique data set. I've stored this data set, huge sum of data set in like 70,000 to a million rows of data in array, and then it's much faster to loop through those and then do certain thing. So for example, let's say that you have a UI, and then someone is supposed to enter a name of the client, and then it pre-fills or it shows all the list of clients that are matching the like the list. So there are so many ways you can use, and storing the data in a memory and accessing them is much faster. If you have a huge data set, it will make a huge difference when you compare to looping through the range and cells and doing certain thing. Okay, so let's try some examples. So again, so far we've done one dimension array. If you have to use multiple, you can say like dim, let's say my clients, and then here you can specify the size. For example, like let's say the first dimension you want it to be 1 to, let's say 501. Okay, and then next dimension, let's say you want it to be 1 to 11. So 1 to 11 like this. Yeah, and then here you can specify the data type. Again, if you don't specify, it's variant. Okay, and again, if you just specify a number like this, it means there are 502, so because it's starting from 0. Yeah, and if you want your array to start not from 0 but from 1, you can also use this word, for example, options. Oh, sorry, yeah, it's option base, and then here you just specify 1. Okay, so if you specify this, then your array, even if you declare like 501, it means it's starting from 1 to 500. Okay. All right. Now I'm just gonna specify though. Okay, and just get rid of this for now, like this. So we have two dimensions now. In the first dimension we have 501, and then the second dimension we have 11. So now if you have to set a value to this, for example, you can have a loop. So maybe dim r as long, and then you can also dim c one for the row and column, for example. And at the most probably, you know, like we'll use 2D, but there will come a scenario where you also need to use more than 2 dimensions. Okay, so try to master on this and then you'll have much better idea. So let's say for r is equal to 1 to 500, 1, and then c is equal to 1 to 11, next c, and next r, like this. Yeah, and here you can say my clients, and then r and column is equal to, and then you can specify cells, and then rc. Okay, this will include the heading. Now I'm gonna run till here. Okay, then Alt VS will bring the local window, and if you look at my clients, now you'll see that it has starting from 1 till all the way till 500. Now this is stored in memory, so when you execute these things it becomes super fast. Yeah, so these are all the headers from client ID till email, client ID till email. The second one will hold this, so row 2, all these are 2, and then 1 till 11, similarly 3 all the way till 11. Yeah, and so this is how you can store. And let's say that you have to read this data set, in the same way you're gonna access, you know, like by looping through it again. Okay, so let's say this for r is equal to 1 to, let's say, you know, it's starting from 1, or you can use the word L bound for lower bound, and then you can specify this, and then from lower bound to upper bound, this. Okay, and then similarly from lower bound to upper bound, but here you can specify which dimension you're talking about. Like you can specify 1 for the first dimension and 2 for second dimension. Yeah, like this. Okay, so let's try this. I'm gonna stop here, F5, and if I try to print this, prints this, and then if I try to print this, so all these are debugging techniques. Okay, then 501. So it says that in the first dimension there are 501 items, and then in the second dimension it has 11. Okay, so I'm gonna loop from this to this, this to this, and instead of assigning the value, now I'm gonna print. Okay, oh sorry, debug.print this. So yeah, all this data. Okay, printing like this. So I'm just gonna end this. Now let's say that you want to store this as a public variable. So let's say you store it and then you're gonna access this from somewhere else. Okay, just gonna so go to the top, and here I will say public, and then just like this is enough. Now in this method, you can also just say this is equal to my clients. So here you're basically assigning a value to that. Okay, the data type needs to be same, otherwise it's going to give you an error. Do this, can't assign to array. Yeah, so here it's invariant, as you can see, public this, and if you come down here, this is string. So if you just remove this and try again, then it works. Now my code is not running anymore, as you can see this finished. But if I do this, u bound, and then this 501, first dimension, second dimension. So this is now live there in the memory. Okay, so let's say that you want to insert a user form. Again, all this user form, like programming, designing, as well as how to edit data, manipulate the data, everything is already there, by the way. So you have to check out that series. I'm not gonna go in detail here, but just to give an idea. Okay, so let's say that here is the combo box, and no, that will be too much to select. So let's say here's a text box, and you're gonna type here, and then it's gonna return in the list box whatever matches. For example, just for demonstration, we're not gonna go deep into this topic, but just to give a flavor. Okay, and let's make the width also same. Now the width is same. I'm just have to align this to the left like this. So there's a very good example which I already showed there in the series. So definitely I recommend to check it out. Alright, so when we type here, we want to, when this changes, we want to use that like our public array that we have assigned there. Not these ones. Yeah, we're gonna use this. In fact, we can just copy that part of the code, right, this part, and use it. So let's say that so this is already there, by the way. So this I think here for reference, and then just to demonstrate, if I go in back here and you put any code in initialize after you select the user form and select this like event, then you can say like me.listbox.add item, and here you can just specify something x, y, z, something. Yeah, so s. Yeah, so again, there's a series, dedicated series, like with 17, 18, 20, around 20 episodes. So definitely check it out. So this is the way to edit. So let's say that whenever we type anything in the text box, we want to get that text box value, and then we want to do certain thing like displaying a list there. So let's try that now. So first, what we have to do is we have to make sure that list got refreshed here. Refreshed client array, something like that. And then here we have to be very specific again. We can specify sheet 1, or either instead of the object ID, you can specify that as well. For example, sheet1.name, I can say. Okay, now if I run this, it's stored there in the memory. So I'll copy this code, and then when this is initialized, maybe we'll just refresh and store all the client names there. Okay, and then when anything is typed in here, we are gonna loop through all that. We'll say dim r as long, c as long. Yeah, and then now we're gonna loop through this array that's there in the memory like this. Now instead of we don't want to loop through all these columns, maybe we'll just try to get the name of maybe the company. Yeah, let's say first name, that will be in second. Okay, second column. So let's try that. Let's try to print it first. So basically what we need to do, dim clt name as string, and then we'll say clt name is equal to me.textbox1.value. So we're saying this variable will hold this text box 1, whatever value it was when it changed. As soon as it changes, it's gonna refresh this list. Now I can say if this, or we can do in string as well, if in string starting from 1, and then we want to check if this client list exists in this value at that time. If this is greater than 0, then we can try and add this to that. Okay, whatever is in that array at that point of time. Now before we write anything, it's better to clear it out. Clear. Okay, let's see if this works. So now just imagine that we already have that our variable, public variable, updated. Okay, now we did not load this in model. So anyways, let's say Rebecca, R-E-B-B. Okay, it's not working. It's working, but it's not fully functional. So let's try this. Maybe we can ensure that both this data type, are in the similar fashion. I'll make both of them to lowercase and see if that makes it better. So I'm gonna load up the user form again, and Mariko. Okay, so all this ones starting with Marie, and then maybe Gerardo, Ina. Okay, so it's pretty useful. In this way also you can access the array by storing them in a memory. And this is one example. So let's say that you have multiple things to check, and this is just one part we are just using it, right? So you can have multiple public variables like this, and then you can access them whenever you want. So let's say that your list is coming from the SQL Server or from Access database from somewhere else, and you do not want to put lots of pressure by like setting up a connection too many times. So you can retrieve this information and store them in an array like this, and then you can access this as well in this fashion. So this is one small example. And again, if you have more than two dimensions, the way to go about it will be, again, let's say this, then you can say like 1 to like 1000, 2 to something like that. So now we have 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimensions, and 4 dimensions. So this is how you can increase it. Okay, and then yes, very good way to visualize this is run this, and then you can go to local window, and then you can have a look there how it represents. For example, if I do this, go back here and rerun this out of memory. Okay, this is out of memory. Okay, so your system also need to have to be able to support that. Okay, now my computer has like the video recording on, and then other memory utilization is a bit too much now, so hence I just disable this part. But if you like assign a variable and you check your system, like you go to your task manager and you see the performance, you'll see it shoots up, and then you'll be able to see the the memory it is consuming as well. Okay, it will be a lot. Okay, this will shoot up. Okay, so that is one last thing in array is, for example, here when you assign an array and then, for example, you run this, all these are variant now in this example, or you can assign a string, then all these are going to be string. So you cannot assign multiple data types here in this scenario. Now that you already know the user defined functions, variables as well, you can utilize that. Okay, it's going to be very useful. I'll just show a very small example. So for example, let's say that in an array you want to have multiple data type. Um, so sub, um, 1 second, array x1, and let's call this dim array list 1 to 10 as variant, and then I'll just stop here, alt vs, and you'll see all these are variant, right? Now if I make this a string and rerun this, all these are string. Yeah, so now just to demonstrate that you can assign multiple data types as well, you can use type, and then let's say that custom data, custom variable, something like that, and then end type, and here you can specify let's say customer name, let's be consistent, client name as string, and let's say that client address as string, something like that. Okay, now we can use this data type in our array. We can say as this, something like that. Yeah, and if I run this now, you'll see that these are both strings now. Yeah, now if I change one of them, customer phone number as long, maybe something like that. Okay, so now we have 3 data type. Let's say this is not an address, currency, anyways, you get an idea, right? Date of birth, maybe DOB as date, something like that. Now coming back, rerun this, you'll see that this has now 3 data types: string, long, and date. Okay, so now you can specify this this now is a single dimension, right? And if you want, you can assign a value, you know, like 1 1 1 for example, sorry, it's equal to, and then you already know about this. So this is one way to tackle it. Okay, you have to specify this dot, for example, plain is equal to this, and then this one dot phone number, this has to be number, something of this, like this, and dot dob is equal to, and then something like this, 12 12 1999, something like that. So if you go in here, you'll see that the value is assigned like this. Okay, so that's how you can use as well. Just go back and rewatch that episode where we talk about variables. It's going to be very useful. Go through it again. I cannot you know, like walk through everything, it's impossible, so you'll have to try, you know, like other variable types that we have not discussed. Okay, now coming to Excel tables, you know, like Excel tables is a very neat feature, I would say, in Excel that many do not actually use, but I personally recommend using it because it will help you to manage and analyze your data much easier. There are dedicated methods and properties in VBA to work with Excel tables, so that's also a plus point. Some of the features that I found like really good are like it's more structured, like you can refer to it in the structured references, maybe from your formula, from your code, from your pivot table charts, formatting, and, you know, like formulas, autofill, you know, like headers are always visible. So there are like so many plus points. So let's go into it. Maybe I'll just make a copy of this table. Okay, now if you have a range like this and you want to convert, let me make this smaller. I think we don't need all this data, just for demonstration. Let's say we have this, and let's say this is amount, this is text, and this is final total, something like that. Yeah, total amount. Now I'm gonna the way to convert range to table is just select this and then Control T, yeah. Or I think there is insert and then table. Now you can see the top my table has header, and then click OK. It will automatically convert into your table, and then you can use any styles, like very smooth, yeah, like this. And then if you enter let's say a random amount, something like this, and if you enter a formula and then you reference, you see like the name range, it refer to it as a name range like this in a way. So maybe 5%, then it autofills. So whenever you add any new field, like the formula picks it up automatically. So this plus this, yeah. So that's a good thing about Excel tables. And then yeah, like I've said, you can refer to it from like by the name of the column. So whenever the range increase, also you don't have to find the last row and do certain thing, it automatically finds it by itself. So it's very convenient. And then yeah, the formatting, let's say that you have an Excel table and what is that, you add more data set, the formatting has to be like manually copied and pasted. So it's not easy, right? And let's say like for normal tables, you have to like put a freeze, and then you scroll down to see the headers. For example, in this table, even if you scroll down, you still see the header right here. You see like column A, B, all this turn into the table header name. So that's one of the awesome part about tables. Okay, now going back to the code, I'm gonna insert new module working with, will not spend too much time here, but I'll give you some cool ways to like refer and work with this. So first of all, let's say that if you record, so the best and fastest way to always get a syntax or do is like just select the table, maybe copy it and see how like what are the syntax it's getting generated. So here you can see like the table header, this are selected. Okay, and then if I go here and try to rename this as client table, this might conflict with the other name. I'll just say client table client, something like that. Yeah, now if I come back here, it says list object, this table.name, so it's referred to as list object. Okay, like we say sheets and this, so similarly here it's like this. So within the sheets, it's the hierarchy is like after the sheets you have tables, like a pivot table. Yeah, and then just clearing the clipboard, let's say that we want to declare it, then now we'll have to dim table as list object. Okay, and then we can say set tb is equal to active sheet list object this. Now we already rename it, so this. Yeah, so if I just F8, it works fine. And again, one of the other good things, like I mentioned, that when the range increase, like you press tab, it's new row, and then you can also Control Shift plus. Oh, sorry. There are shortcuts which I don't remember at the moment, but there are shortcuts to add a new row, insert a new row, and so on. Okay, now let's say that we want to refer. Let's do some examples. Table dot list object. If I do this, table dot range dot select, this will select the table, the entire table. Okay, oops, let me make this like this and this one smaller so that we can have a look at it, something like this. Now we can also have a total automatically added. You can make this sum, you can make it average, and so on. Yeah, you can of course have more totals here. And then if you want to just select the headers, you can say this dot header row, is it header row range? Yep. Dot select. Oh, sorry, I thought I selected header row. Yeah, yeah. So just the header. Even if you insert array, like rows on top like this, it'll still work. Okay, so irrespective where it moves, this is linked through this table object, so it's very convenient that way. Like it's a very efficient way to do it. And then coming down, let's say you just want to select the body, so you can use data body range dot select. Okay, so you can like select, copy, whatever you want, yeah, like this. So you can just refer to the body, you can just refer to the headers, to the totals. Let's say that you want to select the columns. Let's try to select columns. So this table dot what's the list columns, and here you can specify the index or name as well. Dot select dot range select, sorry, range dot select. Okay, and let's try to put text here. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like you can easily navigate around this. Now let's try the row as well. tb dot it should be list, like list columns, list row, and then you can specify the row number, let's say 2, and then dot range dot select. Yeah, 2, it selected the second row, like this. If I do 4, okay, let's say that tv dot total dot I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, so yeah, that will be pretty much around navigation. So let's say that you want to loop through all the rows, or you want to add like additional row on runtime instead of manually doing it, then you can do this. Before we just go in there, like for example, let's say that you have a client name here, and then you are referring to this table, right? Let's say VLOOKUP this from this table. Now you'll see like all table, or you can just say client table like this, and then you can specify first name, so it returns this. Now even if the table has more other client names, oh sorry, let's say this is something new. Okay, now test, and I put in this client name ID. Here it still looks up, like you don't have to go and update the formula reference, you don't have to select the entire row, which is gonna consume more memory and so on. So try it out, it's very useful. Again, you can obviously create a pivot table out of this table, add, and now this is your pivot table with the table range, and it's gonna always point to that table. Okay, whenever there's data increase, you don't have to like run a macro to update that, it's automatically synchronized. So that's good part. Now let's do some examples, a couple of examples, and then we'll try to wind up. Let's working with tables, let's say 2. This is the first one we did, and from this table, let's say first, let's say that you want to add a range, so we'll declare a range. Now we'll call this LR new row. Let's call this new row as list row. Okay, and then similarly, like we assign it to a range, we'll do set this equal to, and then this is where we say table dot list rows dot add. Okay, so this will add a new row. Let's try this F8, so it added a new row down here. Yeah, and that's it. Now we can also add a value there. To add that, we can say with this dot range, data body range, and with dot, and then here you can say cells. You can specify if you know the row, but we already have added a new row, so we can use that row. Current row will be new row dot range dot row, just to get the row number of that new item we added, new row in the table. And then here you can specify the column index, or we can use this similar example here, this table, this field dot index. I think that should give us the column number. Now we can debug that as well. Dot value 2 is equal to, and this, for example. Now let's try this. Okay, so we've added a new row. Now if I print this out in immediate window, say 17, yeah, and I think that is 17. We might have to consider where the header is as well. Let's pull it up here, and for the column is 6, so yeah, that is fine. Now let's try to write to it. Now we're saying in the text field write, let's say 5. Hold on, we don't want to write to the text because this is calculated. Let's say we want to write to the amount. So I'll put here amount, and I'll just do this. So if you observe this, it draw the value down here. Okay, so we need to consider where the header is as well to be able to calculate that. We can also directly reference to this dot offset and all, range dot offset, like this. Okay, but if we want to do in this fashion, then we can also consider the header row. So let's say that we want to get a header row. We already know, like from the, for example, I'm just going to go back. Where's header row? So let's subtract the header dot row, something like that. And let me get rid of this too. Delete row, and this time let's add a bigger number. Okay, so it added new row and added the numbers there. So similarly, you can also replicate this, like by number, specifying a number also, and you can dynamically calculate this as well. Now last thing I'll show about this is how to, if you have to loop through the range. Okay, now I'm gonna replicate this. It's gonna be 3, and so if we want to loop through all the table items, we'll have to declare first maybe a range dim, let's call this x range as range. Now let's say for each range in this table dot data body range dot row rows. Yep, we can do like in range as well, but we can also explore in this manner. So just relate to it as like a normal range, and then you should be able to do it. So for example here, let's say that we want to print in a similar fashion. Let's see the client IDs. So looping through the rows, and then we'll say here debug dot print, and then we'll say table dot cells, and then x range or just row should be fine. This will give us a row, and then maybe we'll just consider the header row as well, like we did earlier. And instead of amount, let's just put customer ID. Let's see if this works. Debug.printable cells. Do we have to mention the data body range? So 67. Okay, 54. Okay, so that's how you can look through as well. So that will be pretty much again from the table side. Okay. Now, before we start talking about the additional resources, I want to quickly talk about application on key and send keys. Pretty much similar. One is for the shortcut and one is basically to hit a key from your keyboard, right? So first on key method, okay? So on key method, you can specify the key and the procedure that you want to run, and these are all the keys you can use. Special keys like backlog, clear, delete, down, down, up, page up, down, all this, okay? All the arrow keys, and these are plus for the shift, control for, you know, like this, and then this, and so on. Yeah. And coming down here is an example. So let's give it a shot. Application on key, something like that. Now, I'm sure you have tried, when you record, you can assign a shortcut key, right? Like Control Shift Q will run a certain code. Let's say copy something. Yeah. Now, if I do Control Shift Q now from my keyboard, it just copied. That's what I did. Now, if you share this with someone, most of the time it's not going to work because there will be conflict and then it does not pick up. So you can use OnKey to assign your shortcuts to for your application. So this is a shortcut that will run when I press this combination of keys from my keyboard. So let's say that you want to assign, if you have the same keys, by the way, assign on hotkeys and then recorded macro, your hotkeys are gonna take, you know, like control, okay? They will be more prioritized. Now, for example, let's say that you want to run, okay, so quickly take a look at the syntax. In the same way you pass the, you know, like parameters. So let's say that you want to press control. Control is this. In Windows, this is in number 6. And then this is control. Let's say we want to do a control Q. You just need to press it like this. Specify like this, and you just specify the code you want to run. So let's say that there is test1 code, so test1 message box test1 message msg. Okay. Okay, so now for this to be activated, you have to run this first. Okay, so the good idea will be maybe auto open code can trigger this, or you specify this somewhere in this workbook open event somewhere here. So when the workbook opens, it will automatically assign a shortcut to control Q, for example. Now I'm going to go back and press control Q here, okay, from my keyboard, control Q. Yeah, it ran that code. So this is how you can specify a shortcut for yourself. Similarly, you know, like there are examples here that if you want to press shift control right arrow, this is like this is the example. Plus is for the shift, and then this caret is for control, as mentioned here, and this is the right arrow key. Okay, so you can use this as well to, you know, like add automation to the templates. Let's say you create a template where certain code to be run when certain keys are pressed, so you can use that. Now on the send keys, similar, but here is the send keys, but the way you pass the parameter is the same. Here you don't specify the code to run. When this syntax is executed, it will be basically, it's like manually you're pressing a key in your keyboard. It's basically just gonna kind of replicate that. Okay, now let's give it a try. Let's say that in our prior lesson we learned in this, let's say you want to do this in a web page, right? In some web page you're not able to identify the ID, so probably you can, you know, like press tab 4 times, you enter a value, press another 3 times, and then you click submit, something like that. So send keys can become pretty useful on that kind of scenarios. So yep, it's all about playing around, and just to demonstrate this for the send keys. So here, let's say that this combo box index, where's the index? Tab index is, let's say, 1. Okay, let's try in this fashion. Let's say that I don't have a good example now to do it, but we can try this. So here it's opening, excuse me, the focus is here. So let's say that we want to bring the focus. We can actually just say combo box this, like set focus, but let's say that this is some more other interface, and then you want to hit, like tap 1 time, 2 time, 3 times. After hitting the tab 3 times, let's say you want to press Alt and then the down arrow key. So we'll try to let the code do that. Okay, so first let's find the tab. Let's just search tab. Okay, here it is. So this is the tab key we want to hit. So when this is initialized and after items has been added, so application dot send keys, and then here we'll just specify the keys we want it to run. Yeah, so if you look at the example here, within the code you specify. Okay, now we do not want any combination, so we just hit tab 3 times. Now let's try and run this. In the design mode, this is not gonna work. You have to call this from somewhere else. So let's say we have something like this, and what is that form name? Input form. Okay, input form dot show model, whatever it is. Now if I click this, so it goes here, right? It's too fast, we can actually see it. Maybe we can make it wait, just for the sake of demonstration. Application dot on time. If you want to make your own clock, you can use this on time method. Now plus we want to wait, let's say for 1 second, 0 and 1 second. Okay, now we'll wait 1 second after each tab. Oh, sorry, application dot on dot wait. That was my bad. On time is also pretty useful. You can assign a macro to run. Now that it is here, so here the time, the procedure you want to run. Okay, these are optional, so you can schedule the code to run on a specific time as well. Okay, so now let's finish this topic. Where is our okay, that didn't work. Just give me 1 second. Must be doing something wrong. Maybe we need to repaint. I don't know, do events might work. Me dot repaint. If it doesn't work, I think we can just give up on this. It's running, but it's not showing us. It goes there, but it did not show us. Do events. Let's try this. Just to show us that the tab is happening. Nope. it didn't work that as well. Anyways, that is not important. We know that it went there and it was showing us that it went to where it was desired. So hit tab 3 times, right? And then after that we want to press Alt and down arrow key. So going back here, Alt is this %, and then down arrow key. That will be basically down here, down arrow key. So it will show the list automatically, right? That was what I was trying to show. Okay, so here the list is automatically, like open. Yeah, so without the code, without these codes, it opened up here, right? But then we said hit 1, 2, 3 times, and then instead of pressing here, we can automatically show the list to the users. So that's how you can do it. Okay, now coming to additional resources, that will be the last part. I'm just gonna go to my channel. So there are so many resources that you can use to build pretty much anything that you want in using VBA program. So if you talk about let's talk about designing user forms. Okay, here you can pretty much learn anything about user form, how to add an item to combo box, multiple combo box, dependent combo box, how to design a UI that looks like this, how you can add effects to the web. Let me just mute this and show you some examples. If you have seen this part, yep, probably you must have come across this as well. Okay, let me skip this. So this is one interface from the older video, and coming here, this is from the second video actually. So this is an interface with the watermark and then the password, all the customization. This the one that we have, similar ones that we've watched, like where we did the like match search, and you type in the name and then it suggests you all this. So similarly, there are like all the custom applications that you can use, all the list bugs. I think if you go here to the video, this one is a compilation of all those videos. You can talk about if you want to design your own custom ribbon, you can use those as well. Reading the data from PDF. Whenever I make these videos, I always consider from the beginner's point of view so that it's not difficult to follow. And then all these are designing, modifying the ribbon, customizing ribbon, putting your combo box, drop down menu, custom icons, automating the Word document. So you fill something out in Excel and then you are able to send those data into Word and then print it out. Downloading attachment from Outlook, navigating to the folders, automating the PowerPoint, sending, automatically running your code when the new email comes. There are so many of them. Let's say you want to work with the web, you want to extract the data from web, you want to fill the web form, you want to customize your editor, you want to automate PDF using APIs. There are so many examples here working with SharePoint. This one is with the SQL servers. So the entire series, I did this long time ago, but it's still very much relevant. There are many people who are still reaching out, for automation. So yeah, these are very useful things that you can as a next post learning this, you can you'll not find any difficulty to design this kind of interface, use all these controls, email automation, tree view, and then coming up here using .NET or libraries that I've recently just published. So there are so many resources that you can use here. Please do check it out, and if you need some advice, please feel free to reach out to me. As I mentioned, this particular lesson will conclude, like whatever we plan for this particular e-course or like series. Okay. Um, the immediate next one will be more relevant for you will be to check out this MS Access database, and then this UI designing that we just talked about. Where's that? PDF as well. Then this one, professional UI UX and RibbonX. This will be, like some good ones, including the PowerPoint and the Word. So since you already learned one of them, it is now very easy for you to like take the next step. It will not be difficult at all for you to follow any of these videos. Okay. So I'm gonna send more information over the email. What will be your next assignments? What will be the projects? Okay, I need to plan this. The projects are gonna be different for different users, different members who followed this. So we have a good number of you following this, but then pretty much half of them, half of you have like not able to follow or was not relevant enough for them, because we have a huge mixture group, like from data modeling, finance, FPA, tax, like all the CAs, chartered accountant, from different fields, so like maybe it was not suitable, so many have dropped out, but we still have pretty good number, about around 400 plus of you are still like doing it great. So finish it up. It's not about the certificate. I'm happy to issue a certificate if you completed all the assignments and you're able to follow these instructions. Okay, but do play around with these resources, try as much as possible. If you talk about the additional resources non other like from my channel, other than my channel, Stack Overflow, is where obviously you'll have to do your research and then you have to put in effort. You should not, I think you should not just go and ask for help or this from like other developers. They are committing their time to help you out, so you should first do your research, try it out, and if something doesn't work out, that's where you come and post your questions, and then they will help you out. I am also there anonymously, and I will be there to help and answer queries as well. But specifically in this channel, if you have any questions, yeah, you can feel free to comment on the videos, and then I'll try to come back to you as soon as possible. So watch out for the email. I think I've not forgotten anything. There are so many other things about debugging, watch windows, like all this. So yeah, I'm just looking at my notes. I hope I've not forgotten anything, but yeah, you have pretty much to learn all the most important things: variables, loops, ifs, select case. You've learned how to design basic UI in the sheets, as well as using the user form, and you have done pretty good job with all the assignments. So I think, well, it is fresh in your mind. You should definitely push for it. Go and explore away all these resources that is at your disposal. Creating custom menus as well here. Yeah, so creating custom menus, extracting the web data, dialog box, message box, loading the. So there are so many things I want to say. Since this is the last episode, I'm about this series, I'm trying to be more elaborate on my points. So I hope it's not too long, but I mostly hope that it is helpful to you in this, and I wish you all the best. I'm here, this channel will be here, for you to learn more and grow. So do let me know how you feel about this series. Write to me if you have any questions, and yeah, once again, all the best, and thanks for following this series. Have a good day. Bye bye.